Hi, this is Clarence Moye with Contending here with DeMane Davis, executive producer and director of NBC's Brilliant Minds. Hello, DeMane. It's very nice to speak with you again.
Hi, it's so nice to get to speak to you again. Thanks for having me back. I feel like it's repeat business. That's a very nice
Absolutely.
compliment. So thanks for having
Absolutely.
me.
The same from my end. Same from my end. Thank you for coming back. So you have directed now a second episode of the
Mm,
second season of Brilliant Minds. The first one, of course, was The Contestant, which,
mm.
as we had talked about last time, and if our viewers haven't seen that video, please go back and watch that episode and watch our conversation. I saw that we had a great conversation. But that episode dealt with some fantasy sequences as that character, confused reality quite a bit.
Hmm.
And here in this week's episode, The Resident, which is the Christmas episode, we'll get into that in a minute. Um, we have a character here who also has some lapses in fantasy or lapses into
Yeah.
fantasy world or some confusion of reality. Was that similar sort of pattern what drew you into the episode, or talk to me a little about what brought you to it?
Yeah. Well, I think I might have mentioned this before. When I get the scripts as a producing director, I get all the scripts and I read them
Mhm.
and give it just a little bit of input in terms of production, knowing, okay, that's a fire lane that doesn't open out to someone's apartment. Let's figure out how we're going to shoot this. Inevitably, I read these scripts and I'm like, oh man, I wish I was directing this. And I got this and I already knew I was directing it. And I was just like, oh my God. So first, there's a hospital gala, which, as you said, we'll talk about, which is huge. But the story of Juliet, she has ICU PTSD, which is something that I didn't know about before that. That's something I love
Mhm.
about the show. I'm learning all these things about different medical conditions. And so she was essentially in the ICU, and her mind turned the different procedures in there into something that resonated with her as a ballerina. They were painful things, but they were things that once she came out of it, she was sort of re-experiencing them when she danced.
Mhm.
And so I immediately started to read it and envision what I would do and what it would be like. It was really exciting to me. One of the things that I did right away is the sequence when she's her fantasy sequence. So first she's on stage, and then she's actually uh, talks about what it's like when she's on stage, which makes her sort of freeze and unable to dance in a certain way. That was scripted as being on stage.
Mhm.
And so it was like Dr. Wolf would ask her what it would be like, and she would describe it, and she would be on stage. And so for me, I thought that's a little confusing because she's on stage all the time, and we see her on stage in that first scene. And so I wanted to do it differently, which is why I set it in the rec room. And I asked, I said, can we set this in the rec room? Can we do this practically and sort of have all these elements come together in this room that we've seen quite a bit on season one and now on season two? A room that you know and you're sort of familiar with it is now turning into a stage with Wolf watching. So that was super exciting, and that's what I love about Michael Grassi, the showrunner, and all the writers this episode, Sarah Saidi and Will Unger. I'm sorry, Will Ewing, and is that they're just game, and they're like, yeah, you want to make this, that's your interpretation, and you want to make it bigger or better or resonate even more. Like it works for me. So that's one of the first things that I did, and I really got excited about and started to envision. And then I was like, oh yeah, and then there's this gala, and it's Christmas time. So it's a pretty rich script. It's pretty rich.
There is absolutely a lot going on there. And I have to say, I love, opening that episode with the rehearsal
Mm.
of it's Nutcracker, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a Nutcracker. And
yeah.
she's playing. It's been a long, long time since I've seen the Nutcracker, so forgive me, but she's playing the Sugar Plum Fairy, I
Yes.
believe. Um,
Yes.
and I love the blue background and the focus on those two dancers and the snow lightly falling, which is a motif that you repeat every time she
Hmm.
gets frozen. She imagines the snow. Sorry, when she's in that fantasy world, she imagines that she's frozen, and the snow, hits her in the face. And I just love how you tied that out, through the
Thank
entire
you.
episode. It was a really nice touch.
Oh, thanks so much. Thanks. I really appreciate it. Yeah, we got to use an actual snow machine, which I've never done before, which is always super exciting. Um, and then the snow that was on stage, which was just a lot of fun. I had a lot of snow in my hair for the rest of the episode. I just kept finding pieces of because I went in it. They were like, "Whoa!" And I'm like, "Is this safe? Let's talk." And it's cellulose, so you can eat it, but it doesn't taste good apparently. But I wanted to make sure it was safe for the dancers, so I got into it first. And then yeah, I think probably for it took a very long time to get all the snow out of my hair. It was so much fun.
In that rec room sequence, which is kind of the next time that we get a little bit of a flash of her going into a fantasy sequence, when Dr.
Mm,
Wolf is played by Zachary Quinto, is examining her and kind of figuring out what's going on. And which, by the way, I love that the script allows Zachary Quinto to be, yes, he's the very serious doctor with a lot of issues, but it allows him to be a little catty, a little funny when
yes.
she's talking about, like, I really need to get back out there because my understudy is going to take this role from me. And he's like, I hate her already.
Yeah.
I just, just the way that he delivers that was so perfect. I love that moment. But getting back to the rec room, where she really goes into the deep,
Mm,
fantasy sequence, where you have the nurse that had treated. We find out that that is the nurse who has treated her the
hmm.
last time, and he's the Rat King. Who are
Yeah.
the two people that come in and tie the ribbon around her neck and make her feel, restrained and choking almost?
Yeah, so those would be characters from the Nutcracker.
Okay,
So
so yeah,
those are
yeah,
meant to be like a Clara like character and one of her siblings, cousins that sort of come in. I think in the original cut, you saw a little bit more of them entering, which for time and we've got a lot of things going on had to be cut down. Um, and again, she talked about these things, but there was nothing describing what it was like.
mm-hmm.
And so I said, okay, it's going to be the present. It's going to be the giant present that comes down and they pull the ribbon and then they put it around her neck. And that's how, in her mind, I'm back in the ICU. And they're putting ice packs on me. And so I'm cold when I'm dancing because how can I make sense of what happened to me, and so those were just in my mind people who sort of just came out. We're verging back and forth between being in the rec room. So we have two orderlies who actually they pull that backdrop, and
Right.
then other characters who are from the ballet. And then sort
Okay.
of the Rat King is the crossover. And the Rat King originally, um, it was I forget who they had originally. They had a Rat King, but I said, can the Rat King be Nurse Silva?
Okay.
And they were like, oh, okay, yeah. And then they just wrote that in and they played with it more. And then, and then when she says Rat King and he says, oh, okay, I prefer Shirt King, but all right. So
another
I
great
love,
another great line. Um,
yeah.
and I love how, it makes sense to introduce him there, given the fact that they
Hmm.
do have that kind of temporary bonding experience throughout the
Yeah.
episode. So it fits really nicely. It was a
Yeah.
really great decision. I
Thank
want
you.
to get to
Yeah.
I want to get to the gala in just a second, but I do want to
Oh,
talk
sure.
about working with the actress who plays Juliet,
Oh my God.
Casimir Gillette.
Yeah.
Juliet.
It's actually pronounced Cashmere, which
Cashmere.
is,
Okay.
isn't that awesome? And her nickname is Cash, which I also
Cash.
love. Yeah. She's just the coolest.
So she was a dancer. She was trained ballerina.
Yes.
Coming into this role, did you feel that she had an understanding, kind of an intimate understanding of who this girl was that she was playing, who Juliet was?
Yeah, I mean, so this is a trained ballerina who is on point, who can dance on her toes, who is also a trained actor. And Kashmir was first up on the casting tape, which is always it's tough for everybody else when you're really good. Because I'm just thinking about
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking about Kashmir. I'm like, that's not her. That she can't be her. She can't. And she was just phenomenal. And so she acted, she did her reads and then she had this. reel of her doing ballet, and she's doing all these moves and splits and leaps and torchetes, and I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is her. And one of the things that I love that happens on this show is I just feel like there's this synergy when it comes to casting, especially. And big ups to David Rappaport, and Linda Baldassari, is that they we find these people who are somehow experiencing something of what our character has experienced, or they know about it innately.
Hmm.
And I think when you have a young artist like this who is both a ballerina and an actor, I'm sure so many people told her you can either be one or the other because that's easier for their brain if she's one or the other. And so, and then you have to fight in each category to sort of stay on top. So she absolutely related to the fact that, this, what's real for her is that the understudy wants my job. My partner is, dating the understudy, and they both want to take me out. And so I'm going to ignore all these different things that are happening, these symptoms, this ICU PTSD, and just keep going until you break. Um, and Kashmir was absolutely tuned in. She just wonderful, phenomenal. We also had an incredible choreographer, Melissa JJ Moore, and JJ came in on the spot, took it over. She was like, "Yep, I know the ballet, I know the pieces. What would you like to see?" She taught me a lot of a lot of words that I didn't know. And then her and Cash worked together, and then they got Brennan, who Cash had worked with before on other series, which is amazing because you really have to trust that dancer who's picking you up and spinning
Right.
you around. And it was, I mean, that's Kismet. It all came together. So it's absolutely Kismet. I just, watching them, it's one of those things where you're in the back and they're literally on stage, and I'm like, I just want to watch this. Like, I just want to watch them. I just want to figure out like, how do I suspend this moment in the cut? How can I have longer with them? Because it was so beautiful, and every take, all the crew, applauded, and it's like we got to go to the theater and like make this magical moment. So yeah, Cash brought so much to it, and she just came dialed in and ready to not only to play but to dance and to be on point. And she went home with some bruised toes, and she never said a word about it. I only found out later.
Oh wow.
So total professional, total professional.
The life of a dancer. Um,
Yeah, yeah. She actually wasn't she so I guess if you've been on point, you can get back on point, but she hadn't been on point recently, so she had
right.
to get back on. So
Mhm.
she was like, as soon as she got the role, she let us know. She was like, "Oh, I'm doing it." And I'm like, "Okay, I can't. Thank you for doing it."
Amazing. So with that character, it's so interesting, and this show does this quite a bit. They don't have traditional character arcs for these patients. You don't just sit here and watch her recover from that
Hmm.
PTSD from the emergency room trauma that she'd had. She has a lot of other issues going on. Now these don't get explored, but
Hmm.
she's like, oh, I love to make them hurt. I want to make them suffer, and
Hmm.
yes, she may be fixed from the her PTSD may be addressed by this hospital stay, but I don't think she's changed by the end of this
Yeah,
episode.
yeah, yeah. And that's something that I thought was interesting too. Just a little more inside baseball. Originally, it was going to be that her dance teacher um showed up with flowers for her, and they had just like a quick half page scene,
Mhm.
where it was sort of like a mutual meeting of like, giving her flowers. And I was sort of like, okay, can we involve Nurse Silva in this? Because I think we want to keep that connection. We always want, to keep that connection to our doctors. And then ultimately that became stronger than having her there. And I think That sort of allowed for a little bit more cattiness, talking about the Real
Mhm.
Housewives, which is all the Real Housewives are favorites in the writer's room. Um,
More
I don't
reality
watch
TV.
more reality TV. I don't watch Colorado, but I have to say that one clip, I was like, maybe I need to start watching this. Um, but even when she's in the ED and she's like, I got to get back, like I can't, and she's rolling her eyes and stuff. I really enjoyed that. That's kind of a more realistic, I think, role of someone who has to exist in that world and has to stay on top and does what she has to do to stay on top. That's the kind of attitude that she has. And I would say that she's learned something a little bit. She's changed a little bit. And, she does let her have her day. She did call her a dog, but she does, she does let her have her day. But that's part of what the show is too. It's sort of saying, on Brilliant Minds, not everyone is healed at the end of, 42 minutes. It's about are these doctors giving patients the tools to live a little bit better, to understand themselves a little bit better. And so, in some instances, the needle moves visibly, and in others, it moves just enough where okay, she probably won't experience that in that way again. So, I love it. I love that getting those different layers.
Absolutely. So there's a lot that goes on in this episode, but I do want to get to the gala that happens. It is Christmas
Yes.
time. It is, everybody's dressed to the nines, and you've got this gorgeous space decorated with giant Christmas trees. Tell me about framing all of that and setting all that up and just living in that space and moving those characters around. And it was a pretty substantial directorial effort there.
Yeah, so I have to give it up to Kira Vernon, who's our production designer, and her team who just tricked the space out. Alan, our greens person, who got us those real trees. It smelled so beautiful in there, like put everyone in a wonderful mood. And then of course Claudine Sauvé, who I worked with on episode 202. I just love the way she films people, faces. I love how she plays with light. She's such an artist. I would look at the monitor and I'm like, oh my, I look at Ashley and I'm like, Ashley plays Erica. I'm like, look at her skin. Look how the light just hits, the outline and in that dress. And she's never looked better. Like everyone looked so good. When I first got the script, I knew that there was going to be a hospital gala. And, I was a big, like General Hospital fan when I was in, high school and elementary. I'd run home from school and I'd sit there and I'd be like,
Still am right now.
yeah, here. Oh my God.
In
Oh
fact, I
my
think my
God.
wife is watching it downstairs right now,
Oh my God. We
catching
got
up
to
on
talk.
today's episode.
We got to talk. Oh my, it's Erica Kane. Okay. And no, that's all my children. But,
That's right.
who I talked about him the other day, Mikos Cassadine. Remember Mika?
Oh,
Remember in the old
yes.
days, he was the bad guy and he had the
Yep.
island. Oh my God. And that name, I was like, that's the perfect name for a villain.
The perfect villain
Um,
name.
yes, and Alan and Monica, and of course Luke and Laura. All right. So I was I started reading the script and I saw that it started with the ballet, and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I got so engrossed in it and I started thinking about, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that. I'm making notes. I completely forgot about the gala. And then, I get like more than halfway through school, I'm like, oh my God, there's a gala. That's right. So, a lot of what I do when I direct is that I watch the show and I'm a fan of the show. And so I want to make sure that I deliver for the fans. So I know me as a fan, I'm like, I want to make sure I see everybody head to toe in their
Mhm.
dresses. I got to see your shoes. I got to see, I mean, my God, Donna Murphy's hair. Our hair and makeup department is just never. Our costumes, Nancy Gold costumes, Craig Ryan French, who did makeup, Sue Ann Stewart Green, who did hair. All of their teams absolutely on point. And so I wanted to make sure we're a show where kind of our doctors are in scrubs all the time. They're kind of in the same thing. They're kind of in the same shade of blue, maybe with a sweater, like, and so to have them really show up and show out, I think was important. So, even when they're getting ready in the staff room, I just didn't do too many big wide shots. I kept Ashley, who plays Erica, with a shawl on because I wanted to have that reveal when they all sort of walk in, Avengers style, when they walk into the gala. So,
Yes.
uh, yeah. So, and there were a lot of beats. There was a lot to do there, a lot of speeches, a lot to see. But primarily, what I tried to do is one of the things that occurred to me every time I direct, I have a theme that's like a visual theme that I thread through the episode. For this episode, the theme was a collision because I felt like different things were kind of colliding and coming together. And so, if you rewatch, there are near misses. When Wolf comes out and he's talking to Carol, he spins her around and goes by Josh, and now they're together and they're sort of moving, and um her sort of being lifted and falling, and um all of those sort of things, and then it ends in the ultimate collision, the ultimate
Great.
accident at the end. Yeah, so I did a lot of people coming towards one another, and then sort of separating, and so that was something that I thought about as well. But really, once you see all of them in their clothes, it's just like you just want to shoot them all day. Because how often do you get? I mean, Tamara Perry in that dress, my word! I just, so it was so much fun, and they really enjoyed being dressed up. And there are like 1 million TikTok videos of them all dancing and doing things. But I'm like, they're showing me stuff, and I'm like, is this why you were late to set? Who has the time to learn these dances? Who's doing this right now? We got to
I
shoot.
love
What's
that.
happening?
I love
They're
that.
having so much fun.
This episode also has a very significant exchange between Zachary Quinto's Oliver and Charlie, who is his
Hmm.
resident. And in fact, the name of the episode is again the resident. Before we
Hmm.
get into that, I do want to say
Yeah.
I was rewatching American Horror Story Murder House, the first season, and because it was Halloween, and I'm up
Mm.
there and I'm like, wait, there's Teddy Sears and there's Zachary Quinto. And I forgot that
You
they were
forgot?
married in that season. Now they're, two ships passing in the night in this one. So
Yeah.
it was a little kismet there.
Yeah. It's really cool. I have to tell you, I have not watched those shows,
Yeah.
and I do not think I will watch those shows because that is a little too scary for me.
But they're
It's a little
very, very
scary.
good together on that. Now it's
Yeah.
they do get murdered a couple of times, but
Oh,
because
they come back.
yeah,
Okay.
they're
All right.
ghosts. Yeah, they
Oh, there goes.
the thing
Oh.
is when you die in the house, you never leave the house.
Oh, all right. Well,
So
maybe I'll see that. That sounds okay. Maybe I can handle that.
yeah. Anyway,
Oh, all
um,
right.
so with the reveal that
Hmm.
Charlie was a young child of a patient that Oliver had lost years ago, you you almost give us another fantasy sequence where Oliver is kind of
Hmm.
flashing back to that moment because he has facial blindness, and so he's
Hmm.
piecing a lot of things together, and you're putting the audience into his perspective as he recalls those moments, and as the revelation comes home to him. Talk to me about visualizing that.
Yeah. There were a lot of different things that sort of happened. Again, this is what I love about Michael Grassi, about Will and Sarah, these writers and what they're game for. They wanted, I think in the script it just said, transition, and it's up to me working with Claudine, and working with Kira Vernon, and sort of figuring out, how are we gonna make this happen? I think originally, oh, that's just a camera thing doing something. Originally, the tables the tall tables were originally going to have tablecloths, or so I thought. And it was scripted that Oliver would kind of stumble, and the transition was going to be a match cut ish from him sort of stumbling behind the tablecloth and turn that into a curtain at the hospital. And then
Mm-hmm.
he's there in the hospital. And then Kira said, this is really funny. Kira, the production denied and said she's Australian. She was like, I don't know if I want to do that here. Because when you put the tablecloths on, they look like tiny ghosts. And I was like, oh, okay. And now forever, I will see a high top table with a tablecloth as a ghost. Um, and so she took them off and she put these beautiful gold bands around it, and it was cool. And I'm like, oh man, that goes my transition. And then I talked to Claudine Sauvé, and she said, what if we just come at it where we turn all the lights down, but there's still a spotlight on him. And I was like, oh, Kira. And she was like, kind of. And then once we were in that beautiful location at Liberty Place, that was all real. That wasn't fake. We turned those lights down. He was sort of in the spotlight, and then we see what he's seeing, which is young Charlie. Young Charlie's with his mom, who is the ghost from episode 206, who we know is haunting him. And then we go back to him and he's there in the hospital. And so it was in the end a relatively simple, relatively simple, and all hail to our gaffer, Michael Armstrong, and JT, our key grip. It was relatively simple envisioning of what happened. What was cool is all of the background actors were there. So when it happened and people saw it, they like gasped. It was awesome. And that's kind of, I was like, oh, and then it made me really feel warm inside because I was like, oh, that's kind of how I feel every day when I get to make stuff, on this show, in this episode, especially. I'm like, ooh, and it was like, oh, other people are into it. So it was great because it sort of, he tries to leave. Carol says, are you okay? He pulls away, and then and now he's seeing this woman that, Charlie thinks he had a hand in. That's Charlie's mother. And then we come back. And I thought it was really effective. I thought it went really well. I'm so grateful to Claudine and her vision and helping to create that moment.
Absolutely. So, last question for you, and I have to thank you for giving us Donna Murphy singing in this episode because she does, she does Gilded Age. Doesn't
Yes,
her character in the Gilded Age doesn't get the doesn't isn't a
she would
singer.
never.
No,
No,
no. Mrs. Astor
no,
would not sing.
she would not
Um,
sing.
but here she does, and she's singing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." And
Mm.
I love the choice of that song for this episode because it is a bittersweet song. It is not the glorious Christmas anthem. At least I don't interpret it that to be that so many people take it to be, because if you know it from Meet Me in St. Louis, that is a
Hmm.
very dark period in those characters' lives when they're singing "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas." It's like an almost an anthem to keep your head up, be,
Oh
they're
my,
going to lose their house, and it's very sad and
I
dark.
never
And
thought of that. Oh my God. You're
well, it
bringing me
works
back.
really, really well.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay. You're right. All right. Yeah. Um, well, that is, high praise to Michael Grassi, to Sarah and Will. I think that was something that they kind of always wanted to do, and I think this was the perfect moment. It's like probably every episode of television could have a musical episode and it kind of kicks you out, but this made total sense. And so we talked a lot about, like, I talked to Donna and I'm like, where would you want the microphone to be? And where would you, and I said, I just want it to be a surprise. So let's have you talking to people and then you turn, and she was like, okay. Um, and then Joe Trapanese, composed and put together just such a beautiful arrangement, and her voice is it's absolutely delicious. And I told everyone on the tech scout, I told everybody in rehearsal, I kept saying, um, you're about to be serenaded by the Donna Murphy. Does everybody know what's going to happen right now? The Donna Murphy is going to sing for you guys. Do you know the Donna Murphy's going to sing? Do you understand what this means? And they were like, I remember someone in the back, I think they might have worked for the location or something, said like, this Donna Murphy, is she a singer? And I was like, what? Okay. I was like, you could Google it. Okay. You could
Yeah,
Google it.
she's a Tony winning singer. Okay.
She's a two-time Tony Award winning singer. She also won a daytime Emmy. This is the Donna Murphy. So, to have when I worked on the season finale last season with Donna and Mandy Patinkin, we rehearsed and we just talked for like 2.5. They talked, and I just listened to them talk, and they started talking, and like, oh my God, didn't and Steven? They were talking about Steven Sondheim,
Mm.
and they just called him Steven, and they sang a little bit together. And I didn't, for some reason, I didn't have my phone. I was like, why don't I have my phone? Just to even press record. And I was like, oh my God. So to have her sing was magical, absolutely magical. Beautiful arrangement, felt so appropriate. And then just to carry us through, that entire act, the rise and fall of all the different beats kind of coming together was really wonderful. And everyone applauded when she starts to sing and you hear the little gasps and stuff. That's real. That's all the
Wow.
background actors really, it just like even now I got like a little chill. So just gorgeous. And of course I have the whole, I kept forgetting to call cut. And I almost made her sing the whole song like 3 times. I was like, even though I knew we would never show it, I was like, I can't call cut. It's so good. Just wild applause every time. So I think coming off of episode 209 with Eric Dane, beautifully directed by Charles Randolph Wright, I feel so lucky to be able to add to the stakes, but also to give everyone the opportunity to get what they want, which is to see our actors out of scrubs and in
Right.
something beautiful, and to hear the Donna Murphy sing.
Which is a fantastic way. I didn't know that you were working. I didn't realize that Joe Trapanese was working on this because I've talked to him several times
Oh,
for different projects, and he and I bonded over his scoring of the Tron theme park ride. He adapted some of
oh,
the Daft Punk score for Tron
oh my God.
into a theme park ride,
This
and
is,
he's done
you're
some of
giving me, I'm getting a lot of homework here. I got to watch American Horror Story. I got to rewatch Meet Me in St. Louis. Okay, this is good. And now I got to
yeah,
go to the Trump theme park. All right.
yeah.
Or I will say hello to Joe for you. That's fantastic.
Yes, he and I think the last time I spoke to him was I think he'd scored Lady and the Tramp with this, the live action Disney Lady and the Tramp with some really beautiful, some like almost deep South sort of score from what I remember. So do say hello. So
Oh,
he
wow.
he does some really great
Okay.
work.
All right. Okay. Lady in the Tramp.
Yep.
All right.
Well, Domain,
Great.
thank you so much for the time today. This
Oh
was
my
another great
goodness.
conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and all these recommendations. Um,
Got some
it's a
homework up.
pleasure. Yeah, I got some homework. Let's make this a regular thing. I very much enjoy it. And let's throw a little bit more General Hospital in there next time too. Why not?
Sounds good. And for those of you who haven't seen last night's episode of Brilliant Minds, which is again The Resident, you can see that streaming on Peacock. Thank you,
Thanks
Domain.
so much. Thank you.
Take care.
You too.